Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 battle report brought to you by the Legion Wargaming. As the Grey Knights have vanquished another cult on this urban world, they prepare to travel back to Titan. They have recovered several tainted artefacts from the now deceased magisters of the cult, and these prohibited items must be securely locked away in the Grey Knights' vaults before they can wreak any more harm on the Imperium. But it appears that someone else has decided that such items infused with the raw power of the warp could be useful to them. As the Grey Knights prepare to return to orbit, the sound of reality tearing echoes across this ruined complex as the webway portals open. The battle today is 1,000 points, Grey Knights versus Dark Eldar. It is tactical escalation with hammer and anvil deployment. Let's take a look at the armies. This 1,000 point Grey Knights army is a battle forged Nemesis strike force, and one thing's for sure, you do not get too many Grey Knights for 1,000 points. As its HQ choice, this detachment has an unupgraded brother captain, and he has brought with him two troops choices. The first is a squad of 5 Terminators. They have a Justicar with Falchions, 2 halberds and a silencer. And the second troop's choice is also a squad of 5 Terminators. Their Justicar has Falchions, they have 2 halberds and an incinerator. There are 2 fast attack choices in this detachment. The first is a squad of 5 Interceptors. Their Justicar has a demon hammer, they have a halberd, a stave and an incinerator. And the second fast attack choice is another squad of 5 Interceptors. They have a Justicar with a demon hammer and 2 halberds. And to safeguard the tainted artefacts, we do of course have a squad of 8 purifiers. They are unupgraded, but they are still very deadly. These are the Grey Knights. Let's see what the nefarious Dark Eldar have brought along. This 1,000 point Dark Eldar army is battle forged, and it is a single combined arms detachment. It is led by the Queen of Knives herself, Lilith Hesprax. She is very much looking forward to testing her consummate skills against the Grey Knights. She has enlisted the help of a witch cult, and they have brought along their own succubus. She has an archaic glaive, and the 2 troops choices in this detachment are both squads of witches. The first is a squad of 10. They are led by a Hecatrix with an agonizer. They have 3 Hydra gauntlets, and they are mounted in a raider with a dark lance. The second squad is a squad of 9. They have a Hecatrix with an agonizer, and they are also mounted in a raider with a dark lance. The Incubi have also graced us with their presence. We have a squad of 5 led by a Clavex, and they have brought along a raider with a dark lance as well. There's another elite's choice, which is a squad of 5 Carbolite Trueborn. 4 of them have blasters. They are led by a Drakon with a blast pistol and an agonizer, and they're mounted in a Venom with 2 splinter cannon. There's a single fast attack choice, which is a squad of 5 Hellions. They are led by a Heliarch with an agonizer, and a single heavy support choice in the form of a Ravager with 3 disintegrators. These are the Dark Eldar. Will Lilith manage to bring back any of the tainted artefacts for her Lord's twisted collection? Let's see, moving into deployment. And the armies have deployed, with the Dark Eldar cruising in through the ruined buildings in their fast and agile grav transports. On their right flank they have massed all 3 of their raiders. On the far right, 1 raider containing the Incubi and Lilith Hesprax herself. In the centre, another raider containing a squad of 10 witches with 3 Hydra gauntlets, and the last raider on this side of the field contains another squad of witches. They are led by the succubus. In the centre of the Dark Eldar line, the Ravager has cruised forward and taken up an excellent firing position. From this ruined shrine building, he has a great field of fire over the centre of the table, and over on the Dark Eldar far left flank we see the Venom containing the Carbolite Trueborn. The Dark Eldar, they have left the Hellions in reserve, so we can be expecting a deep strike from them, and they already controlling objectives 1 and 3. Meanwhile, the Grey Knights, they have deployed 2 squads of interceptors and the purifiers. The purifiers are in the centre, they're holding objective 4, and over on the far right we have 1 squad of interceptors. They're currently holding objective 6, but with their ability to shunt forwards they can threaten any objective. And on the far left, the other squad of interceptors, they have an incinerator, and if they can shunt forward and unleash it across the decks of the Dark Eldar transports, that really could be devastating. Both sides are controlling 2 objectives. There are 2 more in the middle that are uncontested. We have objective 2 between these ruined buildings, and at the foot of this building, objective 5. The Grey Knights, they have the brother captain and both squads of Terminators in reserve. They must have already gone back to the strike cruiser, but they are now being called back as the Dark Eldar attack. The Dark Eldar deployed first, so unless the Grey Knights can seize the initiative, we go into Dark Eldar turn 1. And as the Grey Knights have failed to seize the initiative, we go into Dark Eldar turn 1, and the mission is tactical escalation, so they draw a single objective this turn, then 2 in their second, 3 in their third, and so on, and they have had an easy objective draw this turn. The one objective is secure objective 3, which the Ravager is holding, although the Ravager has found that its disintegrator cannons are currently out of range, so maybe it will move. We shall see. Could it be that the Dark Eldar have already located a tainted artefact missed by the Grey Knights? Maybe. We shall see what they do going into Dark Eldar movement phase turn 1. End of Dark Eldar movement phase turn 1, and it looks like Lelith Hesprax and the Witch Cult cannot wait to get to grips with the Grey Knights. All 3 raiders on their right flank have moved forward the maximum 12 inches, one with Lelith and the Incubi, one with the Witches and the one with more Witches and the Succubus. They are preparing to give fire against the Purifiers in the centre with their Dark Lances, and in a surprising move, the Ravager has also moved up 12 inches. It wants to bring its disintegrators into range of as many Grey Knights as possible. Meanwhile, to make sure that objective 3 is secured, the Trueborn have moved towards the centre of the battlefield. They are just within 3 inches, and they are also just within range with their splinter cannon at the Purifiers in the centre. So aggressive from the Dark Eldar. Let's see how effective their shooting is in Dark Eldar shooting phase turn 1. End of Dark Eldar shooting phase turn 1, and at the very extremity of its range, the splinter cannon on the Venom managed to take out 1 Purifier. The Ravager was rewarded for moving up to bring its guns into range, as a highly accurate volley from its disintegrators took out another 2 Purifiers, and the 3 raiders moving forward. Quickly they all opened fire with their Dark Lances, and another Purifier was picked out amongst the ruins and blown to pieces. So that has halved the squad of Purifiers. 4 have gone down, there are 4 left, but of course they are fearless. And with no assaults, that brings Dark Eldar turn 1 to a close. They have not achieved first blood, mainly due to the fact that the most tempting target was also the hardest, but they have of course achieved an easy point for securing objective 3. Meaning that at the end of Dark Eldar turn 1, the score is 1 point to the Dark Eldar, nothing yet to the Grey Knights. Going into Grey Knights turn 1, will the brother captain and his Terminators arrive early? The Grey Knights are hoping so. Start of Grey Knights turn 1, and the Grey Knights have been rewarded for their faith in the Emperor. Both the brother captain and his Terminators and the other squad of Terminators have arrived. This is a Nemesis strike force. They can deep strike on turn 1. They have both done so, and it could be that the Dark Eldar find themselves in a very tricky position now, as this squad has an incinerator and they can run, then unleash it over the Witches that are clambering over the decks of these raiders. So a good result for the Grey Knights, and continuing with their aggressive stance so far this battle, their first objective is no prisoners. They have just vanquished a cult on this world. They are now in no mood for the interference of the hated aliens. Let's see what the Grey Knights can do going into Grey Knights movement phase, turn 1. End of Grey Knights movement phase, turn 1, and locking in on the newly arrived Terminator's teleport signature, one squad of interceptors have shunted forward all the way from the base of this ruined building. They also have an incinerator, and it looks like the Dark Eldar on these raiders are going to have an extremely unpleasant shooting phase this turn. Meanwhile, the Purifiers have moved forward 4 inches. They are still controlling this objective, and they're going to give some long range storm bolter fire. And over on the right flank, the other squad of interceptors, they have just moved forward. They have not used their personal teleporters this turn. Looks like the Grey Knights have done a good job of coordinating their counter strike. Let's see what they can do going into their first psychic phase. End of Grey Knight psychic phase, turn 1, and with a very low roll, the Grey Knights still mustered quite a lot of dice. The captain, he used 5 to get Sanctuary on himself and his Terminators, and both this Interceptor squad and the Terminator squad next to them used plenty of dice to give themselves both Hammer Hand. They think that Lilith may come charging out of the Raider once all the rest of the Dark Eldar embarked are burnt to a crisp. Let's see if that happens going into Grey Knight shooting phase, turn 1. End of Grey Knight shooting phase, turn 1, and the Knights of Titan have struck the first blow. Lilith transport is down, as are a lot of Dark Eldar. The Interceptors open fire with their incinerator. They had no effect at all on the Incubi. Their armour proved up to the task, but as the flames lapped onto the next raider, 4 witches were incinerated. Then the storm bolters from this squad opened fire, and despite Lilith's raider jinking, they managed to do 2 hull points. It was the incinerator from the Terminators that did the damage. It washed over the Incubi, and their armour was not proof this time. 3 went down, and as the flames reached the second raider, another 5 witches were burned to death. So there is only 1 witch left. The Hecatrix is down. It is one of the witches with the Hydra gauntlets that has survived, but that squad really is a pretty laughable threat now. And to cap it off, the Terminators then knocked Lilith's raider out of the air. They took its last hull point with their Stormbolter, so that's first blood, and a point for no prisoners as well for the Grey Knights. Lilith and her 2 surviving Incubi, they are not pinned, but the Dark Eldar are in a state of shock at the moment. The Incubi survived some long range fire from the Purifiers, and long range Stormbolter fire from the other Interceptor squad had no impact at all on the raider containing the Succubus. And a bit of luck for the Dark Eldar over this side as well, as the brother captain and his Terminators ran. They opened fire, got lots of hits on the Trueborn in their venom, but they only managed a single glancing hit, and the venom did not jink either. So it has been quite a heavy blow struck by the Grey Knights, but the Dark Eldar, they may just be able to hit back even harder. With no assaults, that brings Grey Knights turn 1 to a close. They got a point for first blood for Lilith's raider and a point for no prisoners for Lilith's raider, but there's 1 witch left in this squad, 2 Incubi, and they only did 1 glancing hit on the venom, so they're disappointed to only get 1 point for no prisoners. Still, the score at the end of Grey Knights turn 1 is 2 points to the Grey Knights, only 1 for the Dark Eldar. Going into Dark Eldar turn 2. Start of Dark Eldar turn 2, and their only unit in reserve, the Hellions, they have arrived with whoops of joy as they plummet towards the battlefield. They tried to come down behind the Brother Captain and his Terminators, but they scattered 9 inches. They're still okay. They're in a good position, in fact. And the Dark Eldar objectives are secure Objective 5, which should be easily doable for them, and psychological warfare, never easy against the Grey Knights. But the Dark Eldar, they're still feeling confident. They have plenty of deadly units to counter-punch against the interloping Grey Knights, who have teleported and knocked Lilith out of her raider. Let's see what the Dark Eldar do in Dark Eldar movement phase, turn 2. End of Dark Eldar movement phase, turn 2, and unsurprisingly, the Dark Eldar have reacted quickly. The Ravager has moved up, it's hovering above this building, and it has trained its disintegrators on the Brother Captain and his retinue of Terminators. Meanwhile, the Carbolite Trueborn, they have backed off in their venom, but they've made sure that their blasters are still in range. The Captain is certainly glad that he managed to successfully cast Sanctuary in his last psychic phase. Meanwhile, this Raider has moved over to secure Objective 5, but not before dropping off its Lone Witch. The only one left with Hydra Gauntlets is clambering through the wreckage of Lilith's Raider and maybe charging into these interceptors, primarily to absorb their Overwatch. Lilith, meanwhile, and her 2 remaining Incubi, they are moving forward, and these interceptors may not be around for too long. Meanwhile, this Raider has moved over 6 inches and spun round to give fire with its Dark Lance against the Captain, and the Succubus has led her squad of witches out. They have a lot of splinter weaponry to fire into these Terminators, along with the Hellions. If they can shoot down a few of them, then the Succubus may feel confident enough to charge to finish off a couple of survivors. We shall see. But the Dark Eldar, they look like they have all bases covered. Let's see, going into Dark Eldar shooting phase, turn 2. End of Dark Eldar shooting phase, turn 2, and the Grey Knights are clearly under the protection of the God Emperor. The entire squad of witches and the Succubus opened fire with their splinter pistols on these Terminators, but had no effect. Fortunately, one Terminator was taken down as the Hellions added the fire of their splinter pods. Still, that was disappointing. The Dark Lance of this Raider had no effect on the Brother Captain and his Terminators, nor did the Dark Lance from this Raider. The Brother Captain stood up proud and absorbed all of the splinter cannon shots from the Trueborn's venom, and he was also hit twice with blaster fire. One Grey Knight Terminator hurled himself into the path. He passed the lookout, sir, and the Terminator paid for it with his life. And when the Captain failed the other role, he relied on his Iron Halo to save him, which it did. And he stood up proudly once again as a volley of disintegrator fire erupted from the Ravager. He was only wounded once. So, a lot of fire from the Dark Eldar in that phase, but the only result was 2 dead Terminators and 1 wound on the Brother Captain. That is disappointing for the Dark Eldar. The God Emperor protects, but will he protect in a phase which may be even more important? Dark Eldar Assault Phase, turn 2. End of Dark Eldar Assault Phase, turn 2, and the Dark Eldar have struck back. The Succubus led her witches into the Terminators. She issued a challenge. The Justicar felt honour bound to accept, but with a single swipe of her Harkite glaive, his head rolled to the floor and he fell without striking. The rest of the witches, however, could make no impression at all against the mighty suits of tactical dreadnought armour. In return, the Grey Knights hefted with their Nemesis force weapons, but the agile witches, they managed to dodge, all except one, who was cleaved in half. So, only 1 wound each in this combat. It was a draw, and they remain locked, but a combat that certainly was not a draw involved the Queen of Knives. The one witch that was clambering over her Raider charged in and absorbed the Overwatch. He did die many times over though, but that cleared the path for Lilith and her Incubi. But as it turned out, she did not need her Incubi. She cartwheeled in with 9 attacks and hacked down all 5 Grey Knights before either they or her Incubi could even heft their weapons. She was a blur of blades and blood, and she looks on with satisfaction as their corpses drop to the floor. That has been very effective on this flank for the Dark Eldar. They are disappointed that the brother captain and his Terminator squad were not more badly damaged, but they are relatively satisfied. And at the end of their second turn they have another point for securing objective 5. They did not achieve psychological warfare and they are discarding it. That brings a score at the end of Dark Eldar turn 2 to 2 points to the Dark Eldar and 2 points to the Grey Knights, going into Grey Knights turn 2. Start of Grey Knights turn 2, and they have drawn 2 objectives, which are secure objective 2 right in the centre. Not that easy. Perhaps the interceptors can walk shunt over to it, and the other objective they have drawn is big game hunter. Surely they can take out some of these light Eldar vehicles. Let's see. The brother captain, he has realised that there are only 17 Grey Knights left. They really are very few Grey Knights in forces at this points level. Let's see what they can do going into Grey Knights movement phase turn 2. End of Grey Knights movement phase turn 2, and incensed by the cowardly retreat of the Ravager and the Venom, the brother captain is leading his Terminator stomping towards the Venom. He wants to smash it to pieces with his Nemesis Force Sword. Meanwhile, the Terminators, here they are locked in combat, they are going nowhere and they are surrounded. But the Interceptors have warp shunted. They are approaching, they have secured objective 2, but Lilith is still lurking here. The Grey Knights are very worried about her indeed. And right at the back the Purifiers are lamenting the brother captain's impetuousness. His deep strike straight into the heart of their attack has stranded the Purifiers miles away from the action. They cannot contribute with their cleansing flame. They are just going to have to unleash another long range volley with their storm bolters. So the Grey Knights, they are puzzled. There are a lot of dangerous Dark Eldar and they do not know how to deal with them all. Let's see if they can improve the situation in their psychic phase. Grey Knights, psychic phase, turn 2. End of Grey Knight's psychic phase turn 2, and the brother captain has once again summoned up a sanctuary on himself and his Terminators, and the rest of the Grey Knights over in the centre. They have used their psychic powers to increase their combat prowess once again. These Terminators have given themselves Hammer Hand and the newly appeared Interceptors following their teleport shunt. They have given themselves both Hammer Hand and Force. Maybe if Lilith charges them, they may stand some sort of chance. We shall see. Let's see what the Grey Knights can do in Grey Knight shooting phase turn 2. End of Grey Knight shooting phase turn 2, and quite frankly it was disastrous. The captain, advancing with his Terminators, managed to get 2 glancing hits on the already damaged Venom. It did not jink, but with its flicker field it rolled a 5 and a 6. No damage was done. The Interceptors opened fire with their storm bolters upon the Raider in the centre and did no damage. Fortunately, 1 bolt shell from the Purifiers from very long range has managed to inflict 1 glancing hit, and that is the only damage that the Grey Knights have done this phase. Very disappointing turn so far for the Grey Knights. Let's see if the brother captain can make it into an assault with the Venom, and how these Terminators get on in their ongoing combat in Grey Knights assault phase turn 2. End of Grey Knights assault phase turn 2, and it has been a much better phase for the Sons of Titan. The brother captain and his Terminators made the charge into the Venom, although 1 Terminator was blown to pieces by an Overwatch shot that the Trueborn fired with their blasters. Nevertheless, the captain, with 1 sweep of his Nemesis Force Sword, knocked the Venom out of the air. That earns them a point for Big Game Hunter and the Trueborn. They have disembarked. They have blasters, so the situation may not be to the brother captain's advantage after all. But over on this side of the battlefield, these Terminators have done an excellent job. Neither the Succubus with her archaic glaive nor all of the witches could do a single wound. They could not penetrate the blessed Terminator armour of the Grey Knights. In return, the witches were their usual agile selves, but one was cleaved in two, and as Lilith looks on in disgust, the Succubus and her witches roll double six for their morale check. They are fleeing, and the three Grey Knight Terminators, they are triumphant. Although for how long, it is the Dark Eldar turn next. At the end of Grey Knights turn 2, they have managed to get a point for securing objective 2, and they have managed to get a point for Big Game Hunter. So the score is 4 points to the Grey Knights, only 2 to the Dark Eldar, going into Dark Eldar turn 3. Start of Dark Eldar turn 3, and Lilith Hesperax is not concerned about these cowardly witches. She is going to continue to calmly execute both her plan and the Grey Knights. The 3 new objectives the Dark Eldar have drawn are secure objective 2, which means this interceptor squad has to go. Secure objective 6, it's miles away, but raiders are very, very fast. And supremacy, so the Dark Eldar may be able to get a lot of points this turn and go into the lead for the first time. Let's see what they do. Dark Eldar movement phase turn 3. End of Dark Eldar movement phase turn 3, and realising that her conduct so far is likely to earn her nothing but a painful death on her return to Camorra, the Succubus has rallied her witches, and they're preparing to fire a snapshot volley from their splinter pistols into the interceptors, but the interceptors have a bigger problem as Lilith and her 2 remaining incubi are moving as quickly as they can towards them. They are planning to charge and wipe them off of objective 2. The empty raider, meanwhile, is making good progress, boosting towards objective 6, and the Dark Eldar do intend to achieve supremacy. So the Ravager has held position. It's going to give fire against these Terminators, and is going to be joined in that fire by the Hellions, who are holding objective 1. That is 3 for the Dark Eldar, if they can, of course, drive the interceptors off of objective 2. The Grey Knights, they are holding 3. They're going to be blasted by the Trueborn. It's unlikely to wipe them out, and this raider has moved over to snipe with its Dark Lance at these Terminators as well. But if at the end of this turn everything goes according to plan, the Grey Knights may still be holding this objective, but that will be the only one they are holding. The Dark Eldar will be holding number 1 and number 2 and number 6, which will help with supremacy and is an objective in its own right, as is objective 2. The Purifiers have really helped the Dark Eldar by moving forward, and they are no longer holding objective 4. That could have been a tactical error. Let's see what the Dark Eldar do in Dark Eldar shooting phase turn 3. End of Dark Eldar shooting phase turn 3, and it is a grim day for the Knights of Titan. The Trueborn, cackling with glee, unleashed their blasters. They got 4 hits, 2 of which slammed into the brother captain before his Terminators could protect him, and he went down. That Slay the Warlord, and 2 more Terminators were blasted apart by the same volley. The Trueborn are very happy with what they have done. The Justicar remains defiant, standing over the body of his captain and his brothers. He has even managed to shrug off a Dark Lance hit from this raider. The Ravager opened fire on the 3 Terminators that had defeated the witches, and they were disintegrated. All 3 of them reduced to dust. The only Grey Knight left down this end of the battlefield is the Justicar. Meanwhile, the Raider has moved flat out and seized objective 6, so that will be another point for the Dark Eldar. The only good news is in the centre, where the interceptors have taken no damage from the snapshots of the rallied witches, but with Lilith on the prowl, will they be around much longer? This turn has been a disaster for the Grey Knights so far. Will it get even worse? Dark Eldar assault phase turn 3. End of Dark Eldar, assault phase, turn 3, and the interceptors raise their storm bolters, gunning down the first incubus striding towards them, but over his falling corpse came somersaulting Lelith Hesprax, and she's done it again. 9 attacks and 5 dead Grey Knights. They did not get to strike, and neither did this last incubus. He must be wondering why he bothered to turn up to this battle. The Queen of Knives has been magnificent. That is 10 Space Marines that she has taken out single-handedly, and the Grey Knights cannot cope with her speed and skill. That brings Dark Eldar turn 3 to a close. They have got a point for securing objective 2 thanks to Lelith. They have also got another point for securing objective 6 thanks to the Raider, and they have got D3. As the Grey Knights, they are only holding 1. The Justicar stands firm, but the Dark Eldar are also holding this objective over here with the Hellions, so they got another 2 points for that, and of course the brother captain fell. That's another point. They have got 5 points this turn, meaning that at the end of Dark Eldar turn 3 the score is 7 points to the Dark Eldar, 4 to the Grey Knights, but most worrying for the Grey Knights is the fact that they only have 4 purifiers left and a single Terminator Justicar. We don't think they're going to be able to achieve victory here. Let's see. Let's give them a chance. Grey Knights, turn 3. Start of Grey Knights, turn 3, and the 5 remaining Grey Knights on the battlefield prepare to sell their lives dearly. They have drawn 3 objectives, and the first one they have drawn is Ascendancy, which is not possible since they only have 2 units left. They have drawn 2 more objectives which they can achieve, which are secure objective 2 and harness the warp. Maybe with the purifiers moving up they can secure objective 2, harness the warp with a cleansing flame, and possibly even achieve slay the warlord. We shall see. Let's see what the purifiers and the lone Justicar do in Grey Knights movement phase turn 3. End of a very brief Grey Knights movement phase turn 3, and as we expected, the purifiers have marched forwards. They intend to clear all of the Dark Eldar out of these central ruins and seize objective 2. Meanwhile, the lone Justicar, he has decided he needs to achieve vengeance for his fallen brother captain, so he is preparing to take on the Trueborn. Not going to be easy for him. Let's see. This next phase could be crucial. A huge cleansing flame from the purifiers could really clear out these witches and Lelith and blow this game wide open. That would be a huge shock. Let's see. Grey Knights psychic phase turn 3. End of Grey Knights psychic phase turn 3, and the purifiers may have done enough. They unleashed all 6 of the Grey Knights dice to successfully get off cleansing flame, and they managed to inflict 8 wounds on the Incubus and Lelith, and another 8 wounds on these witches. 6 of the witches were burned to a crisp, but the Incubus performed a valuable task. He absorbed 7 of the 8 wounds before the 8th took him out, but that leaves Lelith unscathed, and she is still contesting objective 2, and she is obviously still extremely deadly. The Grey Knights get a point for harness the warp, but they were hoping for slay the warlord. They have not got that. Let's see what they can do in Grey Knight shooting phase turn 3. End of Grey Knight shooting phase turn 3, and the purifiers obviously could not believe that. As the flames roll back, the deadly Dark Eldar woman is still standing there, and she is unscathed. It has affected their fire discipline. They only managed to get 2 wounding hits with their storm bolters on Lelith, and unsurprisingly, given the Grey Knight's run of luck, she easily dodged her way past both of the high caliber shells. Meanwhile, the Justicar, if anything, was even worse. He targeted the Trueborn with his storm bolter and rolled a double 1 to hit. He is going to have to take them out with his Falchions. And could we see the purifiers try desperately to take out the Queen of Knives? Let's see. Grey Knights assault phase, turn 3. End of Grey Knights assault phase, turn 3, and perhaps the Trueborn could not believe that the lone Justicar had the temerity to charge them. They missed with all of their blasters on Overwatch, and they failed to penetrate the mighty suit of Terminator plate. In return, the Justicar hacked one down with his Falchions, but the 4 remaining Trueborn, they refuse to break. They remain locked. Meanwhile, in the centre, Lilith is left laughing in contempt as the lumbering Space Marines get caught up on this ancient fence. With -2 for charging through cover, they only managed to charge 1 inch. They rolled a 3. So they have a problem. There's plenty of Dark Eldar units roaming around to target them, and of course Lilith may well be the one to charge them now. At the end of Grey Knight's turn 3, they only managed to get 1 point, which was for Harness the Warp. They failed to secure Objective 2, and they never had a chance at Ascendancy, and they have discarded Ascendancy. Let's see if this is a tabling going into Dark Eldar turn 4. Start of Dark Eldar turn 4, and they have drawn 4 new objectives. They have drawn Secure Objective 1, which they're holding, Secure Objective 3, Secure Objective 4, which is all the way over back where the purifiers started, and hold the line. They can achieve quite a few points this turn, but they also want to destroy all of the Grey Knights. Let's see what they do. Dark Eldar movement phase turn 4. End of Dark Eldar movement phase turn 4, and the Dark Eldar are doing what they enjoy doing best, going for the throat. Realising that they're probably the only ones that are in a position to intervene in this combat against the last surviving Grey Knights Terminator, the Hellions have abandoned Objective 1 and moved as fast as they can. They are going to try to charge. If they fail their charge, then at least they will be holding Objective 3. Meanwhile, they have been replaced on Objective 1 by the Raider that has moved over from this central ruin. The Ravager that has shifted over 6 inches to another part of the battlements of this building, and it is preparing to open fire on the remaining purifiers, and should they survive that, then they can expect a double charge from the Succubus and her last remaining witch, and of course by Lilith. We're in turn 4, which means that all of the Dark Eldar now have Furious Charge as well as feel no pain. Meanwhile, the Raider that scored Objective 6 last turn is now moving to take another point as it secures Objective 4. This has been a very impressive display from the Dark Eldar. Let's see what they do in their 4th shooting phase. End of Dark Eldar shooting phase, turn 4, and with this Raider moving flat out to secure Objective 4, and everyone else attempting to manoeuvre themselves into charge positions. The only firing came from the Ravager and the Raider, both of whom targeted the purifiers, but the purifiers must be still under the protection of the Emperor, as not a single one of them fell. But they're going to need his protection as Lilith and the Succubus prepare to charge them in Dark Eldar Assault Phase, turn 4. End of Dark Eldar Assault Phase, turn 4, and the Hellions needed their fleet reroll to make it into the Grey Knight Terminator Justicar. But they did make it in, and the sheer weight of attacks dragged him down. The Hellions have consolidated onto Objective 3. In the centre, the Purifiers open fire with their Stormbolters. They shot down the last witch, who was with the Succubus, and that made the Succubus fail her charge, but Lilith Hesperax did not fail her charge. Once again, she had the magic number of 9 attacks, and she caused 4 wounds. She has cut down yet another Space Marine squad before they could even lift their force weapons. She has been dominant during this battle, and of course that means there are no Grey Knights left on the table. It is a tabling, and the Dark Eldar have racked up quite a few more points this turn as well. They have secured Objectives 1 and 3 and all the way over with the raider. Objective 4, they failed to get hold of the line, but they've made up for it as the battle has ended. This raider has also given them line breaker. So that means the final score in this game is 11 points to the Dark Eldar, 5 to the Grey Knights. If anything, that 5 is quite flattering. The Dark Eldar have been dominant the whole game. The Grey Knights' strike, their teleport attack, was ultimately a failure. They got too close, especially to this particular woman who has bestrode this battlefield like a colossus. She has personally killed 14 Grey Knights. Surely that will be remembered as a sad day in the history of their chapter. They will want revenge against her if they can find her. Meanwhile, she returns to Camorra. She has got all of the tainted artefacts for her lord Asdrubal Vecht, and she has once again demonstrated that she is the queen of the gladiators. Thanks very much for watching. We hope you have enjoyed this battle. Please subscribe to our channel and we will keep producing as many Warhammer 40,000 battle reports as we can. See ya.